Hello and welcome to Campus Beat, broadcasting from CFRC 101.9 FM at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. I'm Dinah Jansen. In today's program, we feature conversations with each of the federal candidates for Kingston and the Islands about their campaigns and platforms. We chatted with Mark Gerritsen, incumbent MP for the Liberal Party seeking re-election, alongside Daria Judy Hope, candidate for the NDP, Brian Patterson, candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada, as well as Fintan Hartnett, candidate for the Kingston and Islands Green Party. All candidates were interviewed separately due to their busy schedules and asked the same questions. In this program, we present each candidate's responses for the benefit of Queens and Kingston and the Islands community members related to their respective platforms on key issues including rising costs, housing, border security, tariffs, and Canadian sovereignty, alongside their positions on key areas including overseas conflicts and funding for post-secondary education and research. To learn more about the federal election occurring on April 28th, you can visit elections.ca for more information on how to register and how to vote. You can also tune in and learn more about AltElxn 2025, coordinated by the National Campus and Community Radio Association, which is offering independent community-based elections coverage highlighting national issues through a local lens. Visit altelxn.ca, that's ALTELXN.ca, to learn more. This program is part of the AltElxn 2025 National Election Project, coordinated by the NCRA, and the initiative is supported by the Covering Canada Election 2025 Fund in partnership with the Public Policy Forum Rideau Hall Foundation and the Missioner Awards Foundation. Coming up in this segment, I chat with the Kingston and Islands candidates about their positions on tariffs, border security, and Canadian sovereignty. Candidate responses reflect local perspectives and do not imply endorsement of any political party. Thank you for joining us. And we'll turn it over now to Brian Patterson, candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada, on his party's positions on border security, tariffs, and Canadian sovereignty.
Well, certainly on border security, definitely we need to understand that the world has changed. We need to invest in our military. I think that that's long overdue. I think there's been underinvestment for many, many years. And that includes not only in our, not just our regular borders, but our northern border, I think, in particular. And so the Conservatives have already announced plans to build, for example, a new military base in the Arctic. I think we need to be increasingly focused on that. When it comes to tariffs, Conservative plans have a 6-point plan to be able to respond to tariffs. And so obviously it's everything from retaliatory tariffs as necessary, and then taking the funds from that to help support those that have been most affected, but also building our economy. We have the potential to be a resource and energy superpower that could unlock tremendous wealth and prosperity, where we could be able to unlock our resources, be able to sell to the rest of the world. Right now, we're somewhat captive to the U.S. market, but I think that with the right investment in that infrastructure and unlocking those that potential in our resources and energy, we could do great things to strengthen our economy. Needless to say, we will never be the 51st state. That is absolutely clear, and I think that the Conservatives have a plan to be able to stand up to threats to our economy or our sovereignty. But ultimately, the root of that is by making our country stronger. That's the best way to position ourselves against these threats and make sure that we're relevant on the world stage as well.
And thank you to Mr. Patterson for his response. Now we'll hear from Daria Judy Hope for the NDP on her party's positions on border security, tariffs, and Canadian sovereignty.
So, Trump demands of Canada for border security and the rationale for the tariffs, like decreasing the fentanyl crossing into the states from Canada, are not grounded in reality. The reality is that the biggest threats crossing the border are going north: illegal American handguns and American drugs that kill Canada most vulnerable. So to respond to tariffs, Canada must spend more to protect workers and small and medium-sized businesses that are most harmed by Trump's tariffs. New Democrats will work closely with the provinces to remove interprovincial trade barriers and to build large-scale infrastructure so that we are more economically resilient while finding new markets for our goods and services. Um, the true border threat now is actually Trump's tariffs. Tariffs that are an attempt to economically crush us and annex us. Trump has repeatedly said that he aims to make Canada the 51st state, and that is really a threat to our sovereignty. And we've been allies and we've had a positive relationship for the past 200 years. And this is just an insult to us. And I can say that it's not something that we take lightly, and we're definitely up to fighting for us here in our well-being. When America invoked NATO Article 5, we defended the states. Our soldiers died for them. And Canada must work with our other allies to protect our sovereignty from new American reality, while staying committed to defending our Arctics and our true allies. And Trump. I'm just gonna have to say this, but Trump is a useful idiot that is destroying NATO and Five Eyes and the G7 and taking the US back 100 years in diplomacy, leaving a vacuum in global leadership that non-democratic countries are desperate to fill. So to protect our democracy long term, we need to build a whole of government, a whole of society response to information warfare that has destroyed U.S. democracy, and to protect ourselves from their influence. We're not that far from them, and I can sense people's fear of what's going on. But I want to bring hope and share with folks that we can stand up to the bullying that's happening and that we're feeling right now. And to protect our sovereignty, we must take direct election interference and information warfare incredibly seriously. It matters. I strongly urge Mr. Polyev to get a security clearance and get briefed on these threats to Canada so that he can understand them and work on building solutions. And I also urge Mr. Carney to remove Mr. Chiang from the Liberal Party, as was done with Mr. Dong. Strong position on this, and I'm just hoping for the best for us.
And thank you to Daria Judy Hope for her response. Now let's hear from Kingston and the Islands Green Party candidate Fintan Hartnett on his party's positions on border security, tariffs, and Canadian sovereignty.
Great question. Without doubt, I'm one of those people who thinks that Canada must defend its sovereignty. The Green Party were not wishy-washy on this. If anybody's heard Elizabeth May, she was the first federal leader, if not one of the first MPs in Canada to come out and just answer Trump and tell him no. So we do that by not building walls, but by ensuring we're economically independent and resilient, which we haven't been. We depend too much on US trade. So we have to reduce that reliance on foreign supply chains by investing in domestic manufacturing, ensuring critical industries like clean energy and medical supplies are produced here at home. I mean, anybody who remembers COVID and where we fell down on masks and PPEs, that's because we took all that manufacturing here locally and put it in China, and then we were the ones that suffered from that during COVID. So the other thing is to prioritize Canadian businesses and government contracts. I'll give you an example. Here in Kingston, we have the Wolfe Island Ferry, the Wolfe Island 4 that's now in Hamilton being repaired because it's got a hole in it. The Wolfe Island 3, which is now still running, was built in Thunder Bay in 1975. The Wolfe Island 4 was built overseas in Romania by a foreign-owned company. And that should be done in Canada. That's the kind of thing that should be done by Canadians, if not for the very reason they would understand what, a foot and a half of ice looks like between Kingston and Wolfe Island. And when it comes to trade, we need deals that protect Canadian jobs, not just corporate profits. So the Green Party will push for fair trade policies that strengthen local industries and prevent foreign takeovers of key sectors. For instance, in media, as an example, the National Post is 60% owned by an American hedge fund. That's just a media example. We have oil companies which are over 60% owned by American interests. So we're vulnerable to those, especially at this point in time. So stronger tariffs on companies that exploit workers or damage the environment, and ensuring Canadian businesses aren't undercut by unfair competition abroad. Border security is another matter. You've got to manage that with some fairness and a whole lot of humanity. I know what it looks like to see people streaming over a border, carrying all their belongings. And I know what it means for that country to accept those people. So many countries do that with a lot of grace and humility, and I don't think we track that a lot. So for us here in Canada, I don't think there's going to suddenly be an influx of Americans struggling over the border. There may be, but we have to treat these people with humanity. It also means investing in modern monitoring systems to prevent smuggling and human trafficking, and just ensuring asylum seekers and immigrants are treated with dignity. So a secure Canada isn't one that shuts people out, it's one that builds strength from within. So on top of that, strengthen the Arctic and coastal security with more patrols and better equipment. We have to equip our men and women who defend our borders. We have to give them the right tools to do that. And we need to source those tools in Canada, and we need Canadian expertise to tell us what that is. We need to build stronger cyber defenses to protect Canadians. That's a big thing at the moment. We need to make sure the internet is safe for Canadians and all the stuff that we do online. So yeah, create a nationwide civil defense corps if we can. That's a new thing that the Greens have brought up. I don't think anybody else is talking about. So that would be focused on responding to climate disasters and any other areas of civic duty that we would need Canadians to participate in. And I guess the last thing would be to stop selling weapons to countries that abuse human rights and to stop allowing weapons to flood into our country from the United States. That's something we need to pay attention to.
And finally, on the topics of border security, tariffs, and Canadian sovereignty, we'll now hear from the Liberal Party candidate Mark Gerritsen on his party's positions on these key issues.
Well, I mean, strengthening border security to reduce illegal activities like drug trafficking and gun smuggling is really important, but we see the need to enhance collaboration with international allies to address the global security threats that exist. In terms of the tariffs, I mean, look, Donald Trump is taking issue with, what he sees as a trade deficit with the United States. But the deal that we're currently operating under is one that he negotiated back in 2020, I believe it was, or 2019. So the point is that, we're always willing to talk to our neighbors about creating new deals and looking for new opportunities to enhance our trading relationships. But I think what it really comes down to here is that Donald Trump is really taking shots at our sovereignty, and he's taking shots at trying to determine a way to weaken our economy to the benefit of Americans. But that's not how trade works. Trade works when it's done and negotiated in good faith and fairly and with both best interests at mind, which one would assume Donald Trump did in 2020. It benefits both nations. That's why we see trade agreements. The more that you can trade, the better off it is for the growth in your country and for the quality of life of people that live in your country. Having said that, we are fully aware of what he intends to do with his tariffs, and that's why the government is committed to supporting Canadian workers and industries and to promoting domestic growth by reducing interprovincial barriers, which is really important. We can play a lead in that role, even though it might be up to the provinces to ultimately reduce a lot of those barriers. But we can also diversify our trading partners and reduce our reliance on the United States. This is something that, I was really glad to see Prime Minister Carney, when he was first sworn in, He didn't go to the United States right away. He went to France and England. And I think that sends a message that, we're willing to diversify and we're willing to work more with other nations in terms of trade. As it relates to our sovereignty, more generally speaking, I think that expanding our military capabilities, including submarines and icebreakers and defending Canada's north is extremely important. And that's why I was glad to see the Prime Minister go to northern part of Canada and to make announcements on modernizing and bringing up to date the radar detection program that we have in Canada. But also strengthening partnerships with other allies, such as we're doing right now with Australia by buying into and signing on to a partnership with Australia to protect Canada's north. So I see what the Prime Minister has been doing, Mark Carney. I see what he's doing in terms of signaling where he wants to go into the future. And I think that one thing has become clear to Canadians, that we can no longer rely on the United States the way that we used to. And perhaps we relied too much on that relationship in the past, and going back decades and almost a century for that matter. And now it's time to rethink how we approach our sovereignty without the dependence on the United States. I think that this is a great wake-up call for Canada. And this is an opportunity to strengthen things like our military capabilities. So the silver lining in all of this is that it might just be that wake-up call that Canada needs right now.
And thank you to the Liberal Party candidate Mark Gerritsen, NDP candidate Daria Judy Hope, Green Party candidate Fintan Hartnett, and Conservative Party candidate Brian Patterson for joining us on CFRC 101.9 FM here at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, to discuss key issues and their platforms ahead of the federal election on April 28th. You can listen to the full interview on the Campus Beat podcast found on Spotify and Apple Music. I'm your host and producer, Dinah Jansen. Thank you for joining us. Now back to our partners at the National Campus and Community Radio Association with more elections coverage from across Canada.